Right, good morning, everybody. A little bit late this morning, but better late than never. Been trying to overcome a few non-technical problems this morning. My other half's doing her best to sabotage the show by putting the washing machine on the spin dryer cycle just as I was due to come online, and then the postman arrived with a sack full of deliveries. Right, anyway, okay, on with the show fairly pronto. You're watching Elevenses with Kevin Williams here of Survival Skills. It's the topical news, controversial views, and biking tips show. We're now well into May, and what I want to bring you today are a number of stories. We'll look at some topical news items in just a moment, including some bikers who were fined for a fish and chip run. We'll look at the MP's questions to the DFT about CBTs and whether they should be extended or not. LV are offering insurance refunds to some motorcyclists. We'll cover that, and we'll also have a look at joining group rides after lockdown, as we seem to be slowly easing towards a position where that might happen. And also got an offer on battery chargers, lithium-ion battery chargers for you that you might find interesting. So, okay, stay tuned all the way to the end if you can't. Don't forget, you can catch up later here on Facebook, and hopefully we'll go uninterrupted by the broadband problems. They seem to have settled down. You'll also find the show on my YouTube channel. So, okay, don't forget, if you've got something that you want to say, you can drop me a line at any time via the comment box at the on the page, and I will respond to that as soon as I go off air. And likewise, if you've got any suggestions or feedback, fire away. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say. All right, okay, so it seems some bikers just cannot stay at home. The latest story that's come out is two motorcyclists who went off on a 200-mile round trip to buy some fish and chips, and they were stopped, asked where they were headed, and promptly fined for breaching the coronavirus lockdown restrictions. The pair had travelled from Rochdale in Greater Manchester all the way to Whitby in North Yorkshire before they were pulled over and sent home. Whitby neighbourhood policing team said the trip was not reasonable travel, which unfortunately I have to kind of agree with there. And they've said that other people have been entering the area and breaking lockdown rules. So posted on Facebook, the police said normally Whitby would welcome visitors to sample our finest fish and chips, but due to the current climate, this does not constitute reasonable travel. Whitby neighbourhood policing team were travelling the A169 and stopped two motorcyclists who travelled from Rochdale purely for the fish and chips. Both were sent home and issued with fines. Rather different attitude being taken by some bikers in Cheyenne in Wyoming. The local bike organisation there, the Wyoming 81 Nomads, have actually used their lockdown time to do something creative. They got out and they've been cleaning up the local highway. One of their members, Ben Clark, explained to a local news station, although the state of Wyoming, through the state of Wyoming Adopt a Highway program, we go out a few times a year. We try to keep the sides of the road looking good. The club hadn't been able to hold their monthly meetings due to distancing, so they took the opportunity to get out and clean up trash and debris from the side of the road on Sunday. He's continued, we just saw this as a chance to engage the people as we keep our highways clean. We want to help the community out and still be safe distancing from each other. So yeah, there are positive things that are being done by bikers, not just the bad news ones. Okay, don't forget you are watching Survival Skills here on Facebook on my live Elevenses show, and still to come we'll be looking at CBTs and whether the certificate should be extended in just a moment. We'll then look at LV and their insurance discounts. We'll finish off with a tip on group riding, and I'll just give you an offer on lithium-ion chargers right at the end of the show. Okay, so on to the second story. Now, I mentioned a few weeks back in fact, almost at the beginning of lockdown, that when it was announced that MOTs would be extended uh, for, um, for 6 months, it made a lot of sense to extend CBT certificates too for key workers, because they would be running out in the same way as MOTs would. And since I pointed that out weeks ago, others have started to say the same thing. Now, I was interested, therefore, to hear that Margaret Ferrier, she's the Scottish Nationalist MP for Rotherglen and Hamilton West, she put a written parliamentary question to the DFT yesterday, I think, about whether or not they had plans to extend CBT certificates. Now, here's the DFT response, which I'll read out to you. The Department for Transport is aware that the Compulsory Basic Training Certificate, CBT, for some people has already expired or is due to expire shortly, and we are currently considering options on this matter. In the meantime, DVSA are prioritising motorcycle tests and CBT applications for workers whose jobs are critical to the coronavirus response, as set out in government guidelines. Please note that many training schools are still open, providing CBTs to essential workers. Please contact your local school for details. Some schools are providing special deals to NHS workers. Well, let's just cover a couple of points in that. Obviously, the DVSA and their motorcycle tests are of no use or interest whatsoever to someone whose CBT has expired. The test may be something that they will think to pass at a later date, but right now, what people want to do is stay legal on the road. So if they're on a CBT which is about to expire, then getting that CBT maintained is going to be their priority, not training to pass a test. The second point there, that I'm not entirely sure why the DVSA would be prioritising CBT applications. Because they have nothing to do with it. The certificate is actually offered by the approved training body. They buy a book of certificates from the DVSA, and then they process the CBTs themselves, and then just post the CBT counterfoil back to the DVSA. So there's nothing there that the DVSA need to prioritise. So basically, in essence, what they're saying is we don't know. We haven't made any decisions. Now, given that it's likely that the decision on extending MOTs was taken at least a couple of weeks before we went into lockdown, we're now nearly 7 weeks into the period of lockdown. Put that all together, and you're looking at 2.5 months, and we still haven't got any clue what the DVSA are intending to do. Now, one official explanation that I've heard is that the CBT can't be extended because it's not electronic, unlike the MOT certificate, which is now digital. To be honest, I don't see that as an explanation that holds any water at all. Whilst it's true that the MOT and insurance can be checked electronically, which means that a police car on the move can look at your registration plate and basically see if the bike is legal, they still need to stop the vehicle to perform a license check. And if you're going to stop somebody to do a license check, then the CBT can be checked visually to see whether it's expired at the same time. Now, okay, presumably the police don't want to stop drivers and riders unnecessarily at the moment, but that's currently how it's done, and there is no change to that rule simply because of the coronavirus crisis. And if the rider cannot produce the license or the CBT certificate, then the usual producer would be issued. So I do not see that being an objection. And similarly, the insurance companies aren't currently aware of whether or not a CBT is valid or not, at least until documents are required when a claim's made. So I cannot see that an extension of the visible expiry date would make any difference there either. And something else that we could argue makes CBT extensions actually a bit more valid than MOT extensions is that vehicles deteriorate. And although many countries function perfectly well with a 2-year test, our current system requires a 1-year test. So it is possible that in the 6 months that the MOTs are being extended, some vehicles will become unroadworthy. Obviously, the most likely source of damage at the moment is to tyres, I would suggest, through the appalling state of the road surfaces. But riding skills don't deteriorate in the same way. If somebody's been deemed of a suitable standard to acquire the CBT in the first place, it's unlikely they suddenly become a dangerous rider in the meantime. So I can't see if there's any kind of logical rejection of an automatic extension. So why we are not getting to see this, I don't know. All that's needed is basically a government decree to extend their life. Are CBTs available? Well, in theory, CBTs are able to, so the schools are able to open up for CBTs for key workers. Not all schools actually want to do that. There are some owners of schools who simply want to stay locked down themselves, despite the fact you can do some sort of social distancing whilst running a CBT. And for many schools, there's also the issue of cost. Now, CBTs aren't a highly profitable enterprise for ATBs. I know that from running one myself some years ago. And if they have to be run one-to-one for social distancing reasons, then the impact on the school is actually significant. The pricing will be calculated usually on a 2-to-1 road ride. You can train up to 4 people in the car park and in the classroom. So it's all down to economics. If you are running one-to-one CBTs, basically you're probably going to be losing money as a school. So yes, I can see a lot of reasons why schools don't want to run CBTs at the moment, and those that are definitely doing a service. But why isn't DVSA looking at this and thinking ahead? Right, okay, so where are we now? Well, don't forget you're watching Elevenses with Kevin Williams here, and if you can't ride, you can still read. My paperbacks are still available. I haven't checked the website just recently. It's been a bit messed about with, but hopefully you can get those orders in. Still to come, we'll finish off with a look at group riding, but let's have a quick look at what LV have been doing with insurance discounts. Well, at least one insurance company, LV, have recognised that if riders are locked down, then they can't ride. And if they can't ride, then the crash risk is taken away. Of course, there's still a problem of theft. And there have also been some instances where motorcycles have been vandalised and set on fire. But generally speaking, the claim rate should have gone down, and LV, who insure cars and motorcycles, have offered policyholders a chance to claim a refund of between £20 and £50 during the lockdown. LV are part of the Alliance Group, and they apparently made around 1/3 of their previous year's profits, about 30 million, available to give back to policyholders. But you do have to meet certain criteria, which I'll come on to in a moment. Steve Treloar, he's the chief executive of LV General Insurance, said right now there are millions of families across the UK who are facing unforeseen pressures on their finances as a result of coronavirus. Our research shows that a third of people with motor insurance are currently concerned they will struggle to pay bills, such as insurance premiums, over the next 3 to 6 months, with 1 in 10 saying they're very concerned at their ability to do so. So we believe it is vital and the right thing to do to concentrate the additional financial support we can offer on those who are really struggling. We spent a lot of time thinking about the best way to help customers, and this enables us to give between £20 and £50, which to some families will make a real difference. In taking this approach, we can do more for those who need the most. So, okay, what's the eligibility rules? Well, you must fall into one of the 3 categories. Either you've not yet received an 80% payment scheme from your employer, or you are self-employed and unable to work or trade because of coronavirus and have not yet received the 80% payout scheme from the government, or you have been made unemployed at any point after the 1st of March 2020. If you qualify, you can try your claim. LV are asking customers to call an 0800 number, 0800 085 5608. To request the refund. I'll put that number up in a moment. Although the advisor is advising that you check the above criteria first, make absolutely certain before you call. They also suggest that if you're not eligible for a refund, then you change the cover to try to reduce the cost of your premium. For instance, they suggest you could reduce the mileage, or you could change the cover to fire and theft. And you can also do that by ringing their hotline. Now, my own experience, I have to admit, back in March, when I was looking at reducing my insurance costs for the duration, was as my policy insurer was still charging for any material change to the policy itself, it actually cancelled out the savings that were had to be had by changing my cover. So I actually left everything alone. So it will be interesting to see what your experiences are. If you've been able to do this, or you've heard that you can, let me know, and I can perhaps follow this up in an item on another date. And basically, this whole thing has come about because pressure has been growing on the insurance companies from lobby groups. Okay, all right. So don't forget, you can set a reminder to see the show. We're on YouTube on the channel over there. You can catch me live Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays at 11 a.m. BST. The YouTube channel is Survival Skills UK with that UK on the end. All right, okay. Back to biking. Well, hopefully there is a faint glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. We might be able to get out sometime soon. And the chances are that some of us will, first thing we'll want to do is go out with our buddies on a group ride. Now, it's important to understand the risks here. Group rides are very, very much overrepresented in crash statistics. If we're released out onto the roads, then we'll all be a little bit rusty. Some of us more so than others, depending on how much riding we're used to doing. So yeah, by all means, think about going out on a ride. But here are some tips to think about when you're actually out on that ride. First and foremost, don't fall into a copycat mentality. Just because somebody else is doing something, there's no need for you to do it yourself. One of the easiest things to do when riding in a group is fall into the trap of playing follow my leader. Riders never look past the tail light of the rider in front, and they never check their own mirrors to see what's going on behind them either. As much as you can, and I know it's not easy when you're on a group ride, but forget that it's a group ride you're on and focus on what you're doing yourself. So here's the first tip: ride your own ride. Don't ride in the wheel tracks of the bike in front. Leave yourself sufficient stopping distance. If the bike in front does something daft and stops suddenly, you may not. On twisty roads where there's only one line, sit well back. Don't, again, follow in the wheel tracks. If you're on wider, straighter roads, you may be able to stagger alternately, so that one rider's on the left, one rider's on the right, with just a short distance behind, so they're offset but not overlapping. But on a narrow road, drop back into line, but then open those gaps up. Don't follow right on each other's tail. The staggering becomes important in towns or on straight roads, when you can actually then make the group a little bit more compact. It helps keep the group together, but don't overdo it. Keeping back also allows you to look past the rider in front. If you are right up the back of the rider in front of you, then you don't see anything that's going on in front of that rider. So drop back and your views automatically open up. Try not to react to the rider in front either. One of the typical thing that happens is rider in front speeds up, so the rider behind speeds up too. the rider in front slows down, so the rider behind slows down. Rider has no idea why the rider in front's doing that, because they're too close and just copycatting. And then the rider in front cocks up and the rider behind cocks up too. A lot of crashes that happen on group rides are multiple bike crashes because one rider makes a mistake and all the others behind then ride into it. I've got a classic example of this happening on a group ride in America. 3 guys on R6s all do a synchronized crash on a corner, almost identical fall-offs. So if you find yourself starting to get too close and starting to mimic what the rider in front's doing, just drop back, open that gap up again. Ideally, get back out of line of sight, and then you'll rely on the marking system to take you in the right direction. If the marking system's working properly, if everybody's doing that as they should, then there shouldn't be any worries about getting lost. You do not need to glue yourself to the number plate of the bike in front. That way, you can choose your own speed. You can look at the road and assess it, decide how fast you're going to enter any corner, how slow you're going to enter any corner. You can pick your own line. You can choose your own braking points, your own throttle on points. You deal with the hazard yourself. You don't copy somebody else as they deal with it. And that also means you can set your own pace. Now, one of the biggest problems on group riding and one of the major causes of crashing is someone trying to keep up with a quicker rider in front. Once you begin to stress over staying in sight of the rider in front of you, then you tense up. You naturally stop scanning. We talk about scanning, looking around. Well, again, if you are getting tense, your view actually comes down. You start to fixate on the bike in front. You start to fixate on the road very close to you. You lose that wide view and your riding gets ragged. Simple as that. So if you find that starting to happen, just let the rider ahead of you go. Similarly, if a rider behind catches you up, don't try to speed up because they're too close. Move over on the straight, let them through, and hold your own line through corners as necessary. It's up to the rider behind to get past you safely, not for you to move over and make things easier for that rider. The moment things start to surprise you, start to scare you, it's a clue that you really need to drop your speed off and ride your ride, not the group ride. And if you happen to be that quicker rider at the back, don't hassle other riders. Now, I see this so often on a group ride, and people actually complain. I had somebody talking about this just recently in a post I put up online, and they said if a rider's too slow for the group, they shouldn't be on the group ride. Well, that's a pretty appalling attitude to sharing your group with other people. Not everybody will be as quick as you. So have a bit of patience. People are slower than you. Accept it. You can always overtake them and get to the front. But if you are going to overtake, do it from a safe distance. Don't get right on their number plate. The closer you get to the rider in front, the more they'll be watching you, and the less they'll be watching the road ahead, and the more likely they are to make a mistake. And if you're too close, you'll be taken out in the same way. So don't hassle them, drop back, give yourself plenty of space. Wait for a nice easy gap on the straight and then pass nice and wide and clear. And don't use a handful of throttle with a roaring exhaust can either, just ease your way past, and that way everybody gets to enjoy the ride more. And if the bike in front is trying to overtake themselves, hang back, wait, don't show off by proving you're a better rider than they are by overtaking both of them. Again, the danger is that the rider in front won't see you coming as you commit to the overtake and will pull straight out into your path. I have seen that near miss happen on group rides myself. What if it's too quick and you're not happy with the ride? Well, maybe the pace is too hot. Maybe you are just finding the behavior of other riders in the group unacceptable, or you're not enjoying the ride. You're not enjoying the route. The last time I joined an unknown group was a couple of years ago now, and the leader took us on a road or a route which consists entirely of congested A roads, and there was nothing that was fun to ride, and all that happened was that with the leader trying to maintain a high pace, there were lots of dodgy overtakes within the group, and when I refused to make dodgy overtakes, of course, the group got split in two at a roundabout because the rider in front didn't wait to see what the group behind was doing. And by the time we'd reformed the group, I decided I'd had enough. So I turned off and went home at half time when everybody stopped for a cup of tea. But do what I did, get to the stop point and then go home. Try not to turn off at random for obvious reasons, really. If you suddenly go missing from the middle of a group, what's people going to think? Ideally at the next ride stop, but if you can't stop there, if you can't get that far, and you then there's another way. You can ease off, let everybody else in the group through, and most groups will run with a tail end rider, someone who's following along at the back to make sure the group stays together. Just signal to them that you are pulling over, and then they'll probably stop. I should stop and find out why you're stopping, and you can tell them at that point that you're leaving the group. And that way, everybody knows what's going on. They won't be looking for you in a hedge somewhere. Just make your excuses, and you don't have to explain why. You just have to just say that you can't go any further, and then off you go. But everybody will be happy about that. And finally, if you're going on a group ride, for God's sakes, don't show off. There's always someone who decides that the best way to overtake everybody else in the group is on the back wheel or something daft like that. So again, think about who you're riding with. And if you are riding in a group, think about your own behavior as well. May sound hypocritical, but as I say, there are so many crashes on group rides. If you look at the statistics, you'll see just how dangerous they are. All right, okay. So I promised I would leave you with a heads up on a lithium-ion battery charger. Now, XL Moto, a German company that I have bought the odd thing from over the last few years, are doing some discounts on lithium-ion battery chargers. When I talked the last week, I think it was, about swapping out the standard battery for a lithium-ion one that, because it has a lower discharge rate basically, and it won't go flat while the bike's standing. I said that if the battery that you've already got is still in good order, you can whip it out and get it on the charger while the lithium-ion one's on the bike, and that way you can prevent the standard battery from being damaged by discharging. You will need a charger for a lithium-ion battery at some point. Now, standard smart chargers that don't come as suitable for lithium ions will give a kick to a standard battery, and what that'll do is it'll damage the lithium-ion battery. So you do need to look for ones with what have a special circuitry. First of all, they avoid that kick to which will restart a lead acid battery charging, but they also come with a protection circuit reset system. Now, a lot of lithium-ion batteries include some clever electronics which prevent them from deep discharging, because that damages lithium-ion batteries too. But that circuit needs to be reset to get the battery recharged once it's switched itself off. Batteries designed for lithium-ion chargers should have that circuitry in, so they should be able to take a lithium-ion battery which is turned off and recharge it. But my sort of quick perusals down the counters at Halfords back end of last year showed that there's still a dearth of battery chargers designed for lithium-ion batteries. Now, Halfords had several batteries which were suitable for motorcycles, quite a few actually, but none of them anywhere on the labeling that I could see said suitable for lithium-ion batteries. So you do have to look around a bit for these things still. XL Moto, as I said, have a special option on. One of the things they have is a multifunction smart charger, and that's down from a fairly eye-watering £120 to a much more reasonable £60. I still think it's far too expensive for a little bit of electronics with a 12-volt output at one end and a 240 at the other, but hey-ho, that's my opinion. You may not have heard of the NOCO brand, though, so you may want to do a bit of digging and see if you can find any reviews of them. And if you don't trust that brand, they've also got an Optimate, which is a much more well heard of brand. And they're doing a lithium ion only charger, which is down from 70 to 55, and that one definitely includes the reset circuitry. Right, so okay, that's it. Time is just about up for the day. Don't forget, I'll be back. It's Wednesday today, isn't it? So I'll be back Friday with a new show with more news, views, and tips. Don't forget to check out regular Better Biking posts on my Facebook page, the written ones. But now, for all of you out there, many thanks for tuning in and watching, and hopefully catch you next time out. Bye for now.